History is often sold to us as a series of noble battles and heroic sacrifices. But behind every throne, behind every revolution, and deep within every modern boardroom, there is a ghost. A ghost that doesn't care about your morals, your prayers, or your good intentions. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli. To some, he is the father of evil. To others, he is the first true psychologist of the state. He saw the world not as it should be, but as it actually is. Today, we aren't just looking at a book written 500 years ago. We are peeling back the skin of human nature itself. Welcome to Hidden Psyche. Let's decode the logic of power. Imagine Florence, 1512. The cradle of the Renaissance is screaming. The Medici family has returned to power, and Niccolò Machiavelli, a man who lived for the state, is suddenly cast into a cold, dark cell. He was tortured. He was humiliated. He was exiled to a quiet farm, where the only thing louder than the crickets was his own silence. Most men would have broken. But Machiavelli? He put on his finest robes every evening, sat at his desk, and summoned the ghosts of the greats. This was the birth of the prince. It wasn't a book of philosophy. It was a job application. It was a desperate, cold-blooded map for survival in a world of wolves. He realized that political power is not a divine right. It is a psychological game. To understand Machiavelli's psychology, we must first look at his obsession with the centaur. Ancient teachers, he argued, taught their students through the myth of Chiron, the creature that was half man and half beast. Why? Because to lead is to navigate two different worlds, one governed by laws, which is for men, and one governed by force, which is for beasts. But most leaders fail because they are too human. They believe reason alone can win. Machiavelli scoffs at this. When laws fail, you must know how to be a beast. But not just any beast. You must be a hybrid. First, the lion. The lion is the psychology of raw power. It is the ability to strike fear, to crush opposition, and to command the room through sheer presence. But the lion has a fatal flaw. It is blind. The lion walks straight into the snare because it doesn't recognize the scent of a trap. It believes strength is a substitute for intelligence. Then, we have the fox. This is the psychology of the strategist, the manipulator, the grifter. The fox doesn't have the teeth to fight wolves, but it has the eyes to see the trap before it snaps. The fox understands cognitive dissonance. It knows how to plant a seed of doubt, how to move in the shadows, and how to win a war without ever firing a shot. In modern psychology, we see this in the dark triad of personality. The most successful leaders in history, from Caesar to modern corporate titans, are those who can switch masks in a heartbeat. Ask yourself, is your leader protecting you like a lion, or are they maneuvering you like a fox? Usually, by the time you realize the answer, the trap has already closed. This brings us to the most debated question in political history. Is it better to be loved or feared? Machiavelli's answer is a masterpiece of cynical logic. He says, one would wish to be both. But since merging them is nearly impossible, fear is the safer bet. Why? Because love is a bond of obligation. And human beings, by nature, are ungrateful, fickle, and greedy. When times are good, your followers will offer you their blood, their property, and even their children. But when the danger approaches, they turn. Love is a choice they make. But fear? Fear is a choice you make for them. In modern behavioral economics, we call this loss aversion. Studies show that the pain of losing $100 is twice as powerful as the joy of gaining $100. A leader who uses love is promising a gain. A leader who uses fear is threatening a loss. Evolution has programmed us to obey the threat before we celebrate the promise. But there is a razor-thin line that most dictators fail to see. Machiavelli warns, fear is good, but hatred is a poison. Hatred happens when a leader touches a man's property, or his women. Because, as he famously put it, a man will sooner forget the death of his father than the loss of his inheritance. Think about the most successful bosses you've had. They weren't necessarily your friends. They were the ones who held you accountable through a quiet, lingering dread of failure. That is Machiavelli's fear in a suit and tie. If fear is the engine of power, then appearance is its fuel. Machiavelli understood something that wouldn't be fully realized until the invention of television and social media. The masses judge by the eyes, not by the hands. He argued that a prince does not need to actually possess good qualities, compassion, faith, integrity, or religion. In fact, possessing them can be a liability. But seeming to possess them? That is a necessity. Why? Because the world is full of the vulgar. That is Machiavelli's term for the average person who only sees the surface. The few who can see through the mask do not dare to stand against the opinion of the many, especially when the many are protected by the majesty of the state. Today, we call this virtue signaling. We live in a world of curated personas. Our leaders, and let's be honest, ourselves, spend more time managing our perception than our reality. We have become a society of fox-like strategists, constantly adjusting our masks to fit the digital room. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince to make the world a darker place. He wrote it to show us that the room was already dark. He handed us a mirror and forced us to look at the ugly machinery of our own survival. As you move through your life, your career, and your politics, remember, every time you see a lion roar or a fox smile, look for the mind behind the mask. Because in the game of power, the one who refuses to see the hidden psyche of others is usually the one who gets played. I am Hidden Psyche. If you've enjoyed this descent into the logic of power, subscribe. Next time, we explore the dark charisma of the 20th century's most dangerous cults.